Alrighty, let's start this presentation. Today we're going to be talking about human trafficking and the cultural factors that lead to it and the health disparities that come from it. So let's dive right into the media and how it's presented. The media is doing a pretty good job, and they're trying to stay up with the times of what human trafficking is today, but they could do a better job. They could do a better job at making it more known what modern day slave trade is, instead of talking about what it has been and what it is in other countries. And I'm talking about in the United States, because in the United States, human trafficking is so prevalent within the modern day home, within the next door neighbor's house, and in ways that you'd never even thought were possible, and things that I didn't know were possible until I started studying for this presentation. Before I started learning about human trafficking as a modern day slave trade today, I only had learned or heard of it as being something like in the movie Taken, where Liam Neeson's daughter and her best friend go to England or Europe or somewhere over there to go to a concert, and they make some not smart decisions, and they get taken and kidnapped and put into the sex trade rings, and they live in dirty, dingy apartments, and they're drugged, and they're taken away from their homes. And that is what human trafficking is in some ways, but it's not that way all the time. And like in that middle picture, that's also kind of what I saw this as in third world countries, where people are being kidnapped and thrown into buses or trailers, and they are trafficked all over the world. But in today's world, that's not always what it is. These people are being trafficked from their uncle while they're at school, and their uncle goes and picks them up and says that they're taking their niece to a doctor's appointment. And while they're at the doctor's appointment, the so-called doctor's appointment, you can't really see me doing air quotes, but the uncle then traffics them out to perform sexual favors for their friends or to provide work for them. And this is happening in kids as little as 5, 6, 7. The average age of this is 13 years old, and it goes up into the adult years, but this is young. And this bottom picture here shows that the media is trying to do a good job at showing this, but I am just shocked by how much we don't know. And it's on the rise, it's on the brink, but we could do better. So let's continue. All right. So family matters. Family, when it's a good family, can save a life. And when I say it's a good family, I don't mean it has a mom and dad and 3 little kids. I mean whatever family life you have, as long as it's a good one, it will be a wall and a barrier to prevent people from trafficking. When families and parents are attentive to their children, when they're attentive to what their school schedules are, and what their friendships are like, and what their phone habits are, when they're aware of that, that will help. That will protect them. When they're educated on how human trafficking occurs and what it looks like these days, and when they're involved in, like I said, who their friends are, and when they're involved with them on their screen times, and when they are involved in their school activities, when they are there and showing their kids that they are loved and supported, these children will no longer, or whether they're adult children or young children, these people will no longer have to look outside of their family for that love and for that connection. The Children Welfare Information Gateway says that children and youth who may be disconnected from their family are often more vulnerable to trafficking. And that is because these children and these other people are looking for attention outside of the family because they're not getting it within the family. So let's jump over to friends. When people have supportive friends, friends that are a positive influence to them, friends that are calling them out when they're doing things that they normally don't do, like, hey, why are you so quiet these days? Or, hey, why are you hanging out with them? You shouldn't be hanging out with them. Or, why are you getting it? Or, like, even if they know that they're involved in weird stuff and they call them out and say, hey, why are you doing that? That's not you. That's not right. Let's go do this instead. These friends can save their lives. And it's incredible the effect and the impact that family and friends have for the good. Now let's jump into how it can kind of be seen, how friends and families and cultures can contribute to human trafficking. When people live in homes that are not welcoming, they're unsafe, they're homeless, they're poor, when they are part of these environments and these cultures, they are so much more open to being a victim to human trafficking. And now let's jump into the cyclical part of this human trafficking. There are repeat victims for many reasons. One, it's because these victims have grown up knowing human trafficking their whole life. That's one. Two, when these people start out as human trafficking, some of them may not have the best home life or the best support system at home, but say they manage to break out of human trafficking, they go back to their home life and it's still not great. They're not getting the mental health help that they need. They're not getting the physical help that they need. And because of this, they fall victim to it again, whether they want to or not. And let's talk about the culture. In some areas in this culture, it's normal to be a part of human trafficking. Sometimes parents in other countries say, hey, we don't have the means to take care of you. Let's send you off to a different country and help you feel better. And the parents are not aware that their kids are being trafficked. The parents just think that these kids are going somewhere better. But in some areas, this culture of human trafficking is not normal. Like I said, the kid next door with the white picket fence. It's not a normal thing. And it's very sad that these people it's sad for everyone. It's not normal. It is not normal. Let me say that. It's not normal, but in some areas it's treated as if it is. These cultures are treating it as if it is. The governments are not protecting them and they're making it more normal. So let's jump into the culture of the political and legal side. So let me get this out here. Human trafficking is illegal. However, in the United States, human trafficking was not an illegal act until 2003. Isn't that insane? Just a little over 21 years ago, or let me do the math here. It's early when I'm recording this, but just a little over 20 years ago, human trafficking was not illegal. But now it is, which is incredible. With that said, human trafficking is enforced differently depending on which state you're in or what government system you're in. In the United States, some states it's considered a Class A or a Class C or a Class B felony. In some states, it's considered a first-degree felony. And your role in human trafficking, whether you are just not reporting it or whether you are just a chauffeur, whatever your role is in it, you can be charged differently. So the governments, at least in the United States, are trying to crack down on this, but wherever you're at, the enforcement may be different. Okay, so now let's talk about the political systems in different areas. So we have different areas around the world. So there are origin countries, transit countries, destination countries, and then there's also sexual tourism. So origin countries are areas where they're less developed, where the traffickers can take advantage of the layout of the land or lack of social setup, or there may be smaller legal consequences. And so these areas are prime areas for to take people from. And like I said, in the United States, or all over, trafficking may be the person next door, but worldwide, and with this more original form of human trafficking, this is kind of what we're dealing with these different types of countries. So you have your origin countries. Next up, we have our transit countries. Countries are the countries where it's easy to traffic victims through. So it makes it easy to get from point A to point B. And an area that is very well known for this is Hawaii, because they have a very big trade industry already. They're easy to get to and from land and water, and so Pacific Islands are a great transit country for this trade, sad to say. And then from there, once they're using these transit countries, they're then transited to the destination countries, which are places like the Americas, Canada, or Australia. And actually, Europe is currently the largest destination country in the industry. So, and then these destination countries are where the trafficking is in high demand. So that's kind of, the traffickers have learned this trade so well that they know that this is how it works well for them if they're not participating in the girl next door type of trafficking, or the niece pulling out of school. And then I do want to jump into sexual tourism. People take advantage of these countries. The people who want to travel the world specifically to have sexual relations with trafficked victims or with prostitutes. So there are countries like Thailand or Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic. These areas are more prominent to have sexual tourism type relations, and it's more easy to have sexual relations with these victims in these areas. Okay, so that was kind of a lot there, but I just wanted to let you know that some governments, especially the United States, are enforcing this greatly. Some others are not, and that is what's leading to the huge surge of this modern-day slave trade. Okay, let's now talk about the fact. So now we've talked about the culture behind it and how it's building up. Let's now talk about the factors affecting their victims' health. So, the socioeconomic status. We kind of talked about this before, but if you're coming from a poor family, a family that is homeless, a family that is needy, that doesn't have their basic level of their hierarchy of needs met, that leads to people being victims, but then it also leads to them not being able to take care of themselves once they're out. They may not have the best resources. They may not know where to go. They may not be educated in what's right and what's wrong with their health. And so their health might not be the best if they are poor once they break out of being a victim. Okay, there's that one. Next one, race and ethnicity. So your race doesn't necessarily, and your ethnicity doesn't necessarily determine if you're going to be a victim of human trafficking or not. These traffickers will take advantage of anyone and everyone. But with your race and your ethnicity, some ethnicities are more prone to certain types of illnesses, and if those illnesses get exacerbated while they're in the trafficking trade, it could just get worse and be a little bit more complicated to control them once these people are no longer victims. Religion. So religion is a great area to help a person's health once they are out of trafficking and in, but let's talk about once they're out of being trafficked. So these people, a lot of people turn to faith, a faith based in Christ, in God, in what's the word I'm looking for? Figures, whatever the or saints, whatever it may be. People find a lot of hope in believing in a faith, and when they turn to religious beliefs for that, it really helps their mental and their spiritual health, which is something that is very much affected while they're victims. Also, religious groups are doing a great job at outreaching, making sure that these victims are getting the physical help that they need, and that they're having shelters and food, and that they're getting the help that they need to recover from this horrible thing that they've been a part of. Next up, gender. Victims are not necessarily female, and they're not all male. Sexual trafficking may be seen more in a female trade, and labor trafficking may be seen more in a male, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that's there. These traffickers will take advantage of anyone and everyone that they can. They will find a buyer for whatever it is that they need, and it may be harder for males to maybe speak out once they have broken out, or to get the help that they need, because males are seen as tough and manly, and they don't need help. So it may be harder for them to reach out for help, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't. And females may feel ashamed and guilty that they got suckered into it, so it may be harder for them to reach out for help. But either way, both of these people need help, and once they're out, once they reach out for the help, they will both receive the type of help that they need. Geographical location. So once these people are able to break free of the trafficking trade, they can, sorry, I just saw the time and I'm trying to hurry. We're almost done here. Once, depending on where their hospitals are located, they can receive the help that they need based on that. Telehealth would be great because they can do mental health counseling over telehealth if that's best for them. But really, wherever you're at, they will be able to access the resources there. It may have to be more of a telehealth type visit, but they will be able to get the help that they need. And then let's talk about biases really fast. With biases, there are implicit and explicit biases. I feel like with human trafficking, these kind of blend together. The implicit ones being people, once they're aware of if someone's being human trafficked, they may be afraid. They may be scared that if they help a person, they may be falling victim to trafficking as well, and they may be afraid to reach out and call the police because they don't want the traffickers to come and get them. But also, it's very human nature to want to help people and to see that these people do need help, and so they will subconsciously and consciously make sure that their loved ones are receiving the help that they need, that they're going to the authorities. And so I know that's kind of a mumbo jumbo of biases, but every person's different, and we all have fears, and we all have desires to help people. So just depending on the type of person you are, is kind of where those biases will come from. But it's important to know that some people may not report it because they're afraid, or some people may go over and beyond to make sure that these people are taken care of. So I hope that answers all the questions. I'm sorry it's a little more than 15 minutes. These are my references, and that is all. Have a great day, and thanks for listening to my presentation.